I managed to get everything else for today, but there always seemed to be one thing I forget. And today was the coin. It's never been one of my children, which I guess that's, that's going to be maybe the standard. um, but yeah, so today we are kicking off our that first line of the new calling and vision that God has put before us to love God, to love others, and to make disciples. And so from now until Christmas and including Christmas time, we'll sort of unpack that a lot more on our Sunday mornings together and also in our life groups. Don't know if any of you have had to train yourself and practice the life group. All sorts of words have come out, but life group it is. And so that will lead so beautifully into Christmas. Because isn't Christmas just the time of absolute wonder about who our God is and what he's done for us? So a number of weeks ago, we sat down and therefore looked at, okay, we've got these few Sundays and, 3 months or so to unpack loving God, a command that God gives to love the Lord your God. Simple enough. And we have written down some thoughts about actually what to dig deeper into as a group of people and as a church specifically. But even as I came to write the first bit of it for today, I was like, what, where do I start? Yeah. What have I actually got, to sort of be able to bring in a sense of fullness? And because loving God really is so broad, isn't it? It obviously comes up in Deuteronomy, and it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. And later in the Gospel of Mark, he also adds, and with all your mind. So it's all of life, isn't it? It's all of who we are. And how do you sum up life without devaluing its complexities? However, I like summaries. I like to be able to just, be able to, can you just get to the point? Just tell me what the point is. That'd be really helpful. And then I know how to reason and how not to reason. That's me. And so I struggled this week because that's not at all how it works with the concept of loving God, because it's all of life. And in the same way that, when Jesus was asked, what are these 613 laws about? He summed them up by love God and love others. But there were 613 laws of things to do, ranging from don't kill someone to don't eat maggots. There's a lot to cover in there. And so it is sort of working out, okay, there are, Jesus said there are in that way these 630 things, 13 things that God has given the nation of Israel in terms of doing and lifestyle that sum up how to love God. And so I guess they are sort of seeing that all these actions therefore means to love God, if that makes sense. And it did sort of also make me think, well, then we've got to go by, okay, what does God see as love and loving him? Because what our picture is of love and loving someone might be quite different to another person. And when Ben and I just got married, I remember there being a season, let's call it a season, where there was just that working out of love languages. I don't know how many of you are aware of, that idea of love languages. And at the time, Ben and I did not have a great amount of money. However, one of my love languages is gifts. So there were times where we would, for example, be having jam on toast, and Ben would mention, I actually really like peanut butter on toast. I'd be like, oh, this is my opportunity, I'm gonna go buy peanut butter, and Ben's just gonna feel so loved because I have picked up on the fact that he likes peanut butter, and I have gone out my way, out of our budget, to provide him this peanut butter. And Ben be sort of like, yay, thank you, peanut butter. And Same with other small things that I would buy for him or get for him, which for me was like, yes, this is how I can show you how much I'm enjoying married life, life together, us getting to know each other more. In the meantime, in the background, Ben was just stressing out about the money I was spending, um, and um, and so eventually, I think we had a conversation about it, and he basically said to me, "Just write me a nice note." Oh, what on earth do you mean? First of all, I thought, well, how do I even express with words what towards you? So, oh my goodness, what a mission! And definitely feeling like, listen, this is not the way I'm going to feel like I'm giving you this love. But you've got to work it out, don't you? And I think I had to work out that actually, if my desire is to love Ben and show Ben love, then actually I've got to prefer how he receives it rather than the way that I would like to give it. And that doesn't mean that I never get to do it my way, to also fulfill those love languages in me in terms of being able to show. But it is important, to put that preference down and do it the other person's way. And I think it's the same with our love for God. And so this coming week in our life groups, we're going to dig a little bit deeper just in the idea of love. What is love? Apparently, it's one of the most Googled questions. What is love? Isn't that crazy? As human beings, we all have a reference point of it, whether it is, a deep love we have received from a parent, or your reference point is purely, I love this hot dog. There is a sense of everyone has a reference point of love, yet to pin it down what it means, as human beings, we struggle. And so we will look more at what is love for God, a definition from love himself, so that when we love God, it is in the picture that he has pictured for us. And because unfortunately, the love that we see and experience outside of God actually is flawed because the source is flawed, and it's limited because the source is limited. And so the love definition we get in the Bible from God himself, from love himself, is the perfect love, both felt and expressed, flawless and unlimited. And obviously our perfect example is Jesus, who, although he was human, he was in that way not flawed. And so the love he expresses, both towards others, but also towards God, we can take as a perfect example. And which does make me think, well, actually, this idea of loving God and how broad it is, it's not an overnight, you either don't or do. It's not a case of, well, you either love someone or you don't love someone. There is a lot more in there that is in the way that it is expressed, because maybe it's different for you, but my experience is that the day you become a Christian isn't the day you become Jesus, unfortunately. And so therefore, from the day we become a Christian to the day we will be like Jesus, actually there's a journey to be walked. There's a gap in between that actually in this lifetime we do get to discover and grow in and get to know more. So we're all in that way on different places in this journey, and we're all going at different paces in this journey, but we're all going in the same direction. And so my encouragement to you is, over the next few months, as we look at loving God, don't hold back from sharing yourself. Give your journey, give your place of where you are at the journey, what God has shown you, what has had to change in you, where do you feel you are? Share it in our life groups when we are together, but also one-on-one, to be unpacking, okay, where are we at, and what are we actually learning? How is God wanting to show us more? And so I have got the privilege to, for me this morning, I'm going to share part of my journey, and which I do realize is a privilege, as I get a long time slot to do my part, to just share from me. But they're thoughts that I've put together around how I personally feel the way we approach and see God is a big aspect that affects the way we love him. And so I want to look at approaching God as both King and Father in the context of loving him. So first of all, I want to start with Father. I'm going to just grab a drink. And as we say, that if we are loving God as a father, that means that our position is that one of a child. And so I want to look at 3 different stages in a child's life and sort of reflect on expressing love in those stages. And the first one is our newborn phase, which I personally love. We've had, obviously in the last few weeks, we've had a couple of different newborns being born in different families. And I remember with all 3 of my children just loving those first few weeks of, a lot of people say, but they're just a blob. I was like, yeah, but they're such a blob to just hold, and you don't need to discipline them. You don't need to worry about routine. It's just, 2 weeks of absolute chaos, but you've just got to love and comfort and pat them on the back and pat them on the bum. And it's just, I love that stage. But they are so demanding. Where they have had, that 24/7 care in every physical way from when they were in the womb, actually not that much changes in terms of that constant need they have when they come out. And so I remember 7 years ago today, with Simeon becoming a first-time mum. That was quite a shock. Quite a shock to the system. And I think I would have lost count if I had tried to count how many times I either thought or said, please, can I just go brush my hair? Please, can I just go and watch some TV? Please, can I just cook dinner with 2 hands? Actually, please, can I just eat dinner with 2 hands? Please, can I just? I feel like since then, my standards have lowered a little bit. And I don't worry anymore. I get it now. I don't just get just. But please, can I just have the toilet door shut when I'm on the toilet? That's now my standard. I've learned. You don't ask too much. But in that newborn phase, they do ask everything of you, and in that way they test the boundaries of your love for them, because they don't give any of it in return. It is just pouring into them, and possibly after 6 weeks you get a little smile that I'll claim that smile was at me, because I've been looking after you for 6 weeks, not sleeping, not eating, just to look after you. And I'm taking way much time for this, but you can see that is my personal experience. And so, but there isn't, everything that is poured in, there isn't much in return. However, more and more science shows and research shows how much goes on in the brain at that point, and how, although outwardly it doesn't look like they are receiving much of it, in the brain, things at that time are being set up for adulthood. It said the connections that are made at that point neurologically will set up a child in good ways in adulthood. And more research is showing all the different things and connections that are being made in the brain when shown stuff at that age that are really important for that development. And so the love from that child is fully there. It is fully receiving it and fully happening, but isn't quite, obviously being expressed in the same way. And my children now, they're not newborns anymore. They're way too loud to be newborns. They're way too active to be newborns. And so I know my children love me because they say it back to me. I will say, I love you, and they say, I love you too, Mummy. Or they need a little nudge, and then they'll say it. Or they'll come and give me a hug. And they are now also at that stage where they're starting to pick up, oh, Mummy likes it when I X, Y, Z. They know when I like it when they clean the lounge, when everything gets tidied. And so I know bit by bit, those things are small expressions for them that they are learning, oh, this is how I can show mummy XYZ. But oh boy, can they act in the complete opposite way. In fact, more times than not, the words will say, oh, mummy, I love you too. But their actions express something very differently. And a lot of the time, they are not in that time being naughty, they're being children. And although I know the love is fully there, their immaturity lets them down, and they just need to be taught. They just need to be shown and taught, and they'll get there. And but I also think, and this is my third point of reference for these different stages, is myself as a teenager. And I remember, or I think now, I really loved my family. I know I loved my family. I know I loved, and still do, my mum and dad. I actually quite like them, both as parents and as people who they are. And however, I remember a phase where I was just daydreaming every day about gymnastics boarding school and being able to just be there and not be part of home. And it was to hide away, to be forgotten, and to just be left alone. And I think now, looking back, I think it's because I think the love that was facilitated and went around in our home, that I didn't believe at that stage that I belonged in that and that I deserved that love. And actually, it would be a lot better to just hide away from it, sort myself out, and then I could come and be a part of this amazing love my parents facilitated. And so, although I know I loved the people that were my family, is because of my personal insecurities and hurts, that actually the love I felt inside, deep inside at that point, did not match my actions towards those that I did really love and appreciate. And so the reason why I thought, actually, for me, this has been relevant to reflect on in terms of my picture of therefore loving God, if our position is that of a child, is that actually along the journey of learning more about how to love God, we have got to, first of all, receive that love every day. We cannot give what we don't have. And there's that scripture, isn't it, that says, this is love, not that we loved God, but that God loved us and sent his son as an atoning sacrifice for us. And so just like that newborn that just needs to receive it, that the right connections are being made, we've got to do the same with God's love, receiving it every single day. And we need to be taught. We need to be taught and have understanding of how to show it. And we need to deal with the hurts, because they can limit us from walking in God's love accurately. So this is where I was going to go. I've brought a coin today. I did not bring a coin today. Vicky gave me a coin today. So here is our coin. And the reason why I wanted to bring a coin is because we've looked at Father, and that us loving God is fully in the picture of Father, and that picture is complete. And this is now not the flip side of the story. It isn't the other side, the contradicting side of him. It is the, how did I write it down? That what it is. It is the other side of the coin to make the picture complete. That if you only have one side of the coin, the full value isn't right. You can't go pay with that at a shop. You need to have the full sides of the coin to have the full value. And in the same way, it's with our picture of God, that he is both God, Father and King. And in the Bible, God uses a number of different, obviously, metaphors and names to express to us as his people who he is and how we can know him and how to understand him. But the two most significant ones are definitely King and Father. As we see God as a picture of King from the beginning until the end, from when Israel asks, God, please, can we have a king like all the other nations? And God says, but why? I'm your king. And they insist on it anyway. And so God gives them a king, all the way to the point, obviously, where we come in Revelation. And the imagery in Revelation is just all royalty, isn't it? Majestic royalty, thrones, glory, you know, the whole shebang. And so I remember a number of years ago, The Crown came out on Netflix. I don't know how many of you have watched it. I found it really fascinating, and I finally got why the English are so fond of the royal family and the Queen. And so I found it really helpful to know a little bit more of the history, and thought, yes, I love this woman too. And although, you know, obviously the storyline is not always 100% accurate. But I thought it was so fascinating the way that they were very good at portraying both this sense of these people, their lives, their family relationship, and all the drama that goes on within that aspect, but also very clearly outlining that they were royalty and the business that comes with that and the responsibility that comes with that. And the problem, well, actually throughout the whole storyline, you just felt like, my goodness, is that a difficult balance? My goodness, does that just clash all the time? These two dynamics of family and royalty. And I believe that it's not so with God, that actually him being father and king are in perfect harmony with each other. They're not two contradicting characteristics of him. They are one full picture of who he is. And so it's important to dig into both of those characteristics. And Ben and I love watching documentaries, especially nature ones, but I'm happy he's not here right now. I also really like the ones about old civilizations. Which I'm happy he's not here, because I feel like that statement is very contradicting to, I think, who I was 10 years ago. But after 10 years of marriage, this is the sort of stuff I like and I am into. Especially there's one, I don't even know what it's on. I think it's Disney Plus. There's this guy and he's got the technology. Please just raise your hands and cheer if you know what I'm talking about. That will make me feel slightly less awkward. He's got the technology to look under the earth, to look underground. Yes, okay, I'm not crazy. Other people have watched this, normal people, you have heard it. But it is really fascinating because based on the layout of these different civilizations, so much is shown about the way they did life. And so yeah, I really enjoy sort of looking at what they were like socially, economically, and governmentally, how everything was run, and find it fascinating, unfortunately. But people have always, over time, clustered together in groupings, whether that has just been in the form of as families being one cluster with elders, or whether it has been to the extent of whole civilizations and kingdoms and nations. People have got the tendency to cluster together like that. Why? It gives protection, it gives prosperity, identity, purpose, and belonging, to be in it together. And the way that often a civilization is socially, economically, politically, however, very much reflects the governing body that's at the top of them. And in terms of the values that that person might have. And obviously for us, that is in the context of the king and a kingdom. And for us, our kingdom, God's kingdom, the kingdom we are a part of, very much reflects the king. And it is a beautiful kingdom that we are a part of. It's a kingdom, and each time I don't know if you picture it for yourself, a kingdom. I don't know what your reference point is of what documentary you then picture, or what Disney princess you picture in her kingdom. But I always picture it's this kingdom of love and forgiveness and peace. There's just peace throughout the whole kingdom, and grace and life and fruitfulness. It's a kingdom of complete order, no chaos. It's one of humility, not self-centeredness, one of generosity, not me, myself, and I. It's one of trust, not distrust and fear. And it's one of yielding, not anarchy. Is that how you say that word? Anarchy. However, today, I think especially, I was going to say especially in our Western society, but I don't think it's a Western society thing at all. I think it's seen everywhere. The picture of authority and submission actually brings a lot of negative feelings in people. And I don't know if it's the same for you when you hear those words. Is your first feeling a niggle, or is your first feeling peace, protection, care? It's an interesting one to think about, because I feel like actually society and people mistrust government decisions. And our you society favours freedom of personal action and thoughts to the extent where people say, who are you to make decisions over me? And it's a difficult way of trying to line up God's kingdom with that thinking. But it is important for us to think about the way we think about authority. And because often we talk about the way you see Father, and your reference point of Father is the way that you will see God. Have you heard that before? Yeah. But it's the same with King and kingdom and authority and government. That is also the role that God is. And so we've got to say, okay, what is our picture then? Because it will too affect the way we see God. And so in the same way that God says, kids, obey your parents, is something that God puts in place to reflect who he is as Father and who we should be as children towards him. But he also says to us in the word, submit to authority, pray for those in government, because that too reflects God's ways and his kingdom. And so why is this all important in the context of loving God, as that is in the end what we are digging into? It's because loving God, because who God is will affect how and how deep we love God. Therefore, the way we see him will affect how we love him and how deep we love him. And so in 2 weeks' time, in our live groups, we'll dig a little bit deeper into that picture of Father and King, and what are our natural sort of tendency to lean more towards one or the other, which I think as people we all do, don't we? We relate to one more than to the other, dependent on our reference point, dependent on our personalities. But it will be a good one to dig into and ask God, okay, what do you want to reveal about yourself? Not about pointing out wrongs in me, but about just making the picture of who we see God is more accurate, so that the way we can love him is more accurate. And because depending on how you feel towards either or both of them, there is so much to be loved in our God. You know, we're loving a Father who cares for us, who helps us, who has grace and forgiveness when we get it wrong. A kind and gentle Father is the one we're loving. But we're also loving a sovereign, righteous, but just King who will protect us, who will not let chaos reign, has ways and laws that are good for us, that prosper us, that bring life to us, and that protect us. And so what's not to love about that King? And so I come back to my coin. We can't love half of a person and not the other half. And we can't fully love someone but slightly neglect some of them. And I think the trap is sometimes that if we only or lean too much towards loving God as Father, we can fall into the trap of familiarization with his ways and with his commands. And in the end, love the Lord your God is a command. It's not just a nice suggestion. And we can fall into the trap of basing all our love to God on our feelings, and we lose discernment of the truth. But if we only love God as King, or too much lean towards that way, we can fall into the trap of becoming very religious and doing the right things, but missing out on the heart and the relationship. And it becomes about a formulaic way of approaching God to get what we want. So, my encouragement to sum this up, I'm going to try and make a summary because I like summaries. And I'm not going to try and sum up loving God, but I do want to try and sum up what I feel is where we should go and the angle to push into thinking about loving God and going deeper into that, and the calling God is throwing out to us to love him more. My encouragement would be that we pursue and dig deeper into who God is and who it is we are loving. Because the more we dig into who our God is, we cannot not love him. But it's then, like our stages that I went through earlier, learning what that looks like, how is that best expressed, and what are the things that stop us. And and to make sure that we daily abide in that love. We only love because he loved us first. We can't give what we don't have. And so, my encouragement and prayer is to dig deeper into that, and that everything we do to love God more is because of an overflow of who he has shown him to be to ourselves, rather than us trying to make up for or trying to do it the right way, as I think we all so easily fall into that trap, don't we? So let me pray and pray for us this morning. Pray for us on this journey. Summing it all up, Jesus said, love God and love others. And so I feel like in this time, it's almost a privilege for us as a church to dig deeper just into these basics. You know, we're so quick to move on and build upon and go higher, and we look at this and we look at this and we get caught in busyness. And I feel like the invitation is just there at this time to look at the two most important things for God, to love him and to love others. And so, Holy Spirit, I want to pray that you would come and reveal Abba Father to us, that you would again